Earlier this year, as we commemorated the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the Queen and I had the enormous privilege of meeting once again the remarkable veterans of that very special generation who gave of themselves so courageously on behalf of us all.
Well, I think the King got the balance absolutely right. He concentrated to begin with on the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the end of the war and talked about that. He mentioned illness and the support that he and his family had had in the middle. And then he went on to talk about the Commonwealth. So he addressed, I think we would have been surprised if he hadn't said anything at all about illness and the difficult year that the royal families had. But he didn't overemphasize that, if you see what I mean. He slipped it in the middle in a very subtle way, I thought. So I think it was a very good message. Well, we know what the family's been through. We've been following it for the whole year. So I think that, he addressed it. He mentioned it. He talked about the anxieties. He talked about the uncertainties, but he didn't overemphasize that in any way. I mean, Christmas Day is meant to be a happy day. We're meant to be positive. We're meant to be looking forward. I think he got it just right, actually. Well, I think that the public watching it will be interested that he did it in the Fitzrovia Chapel, which is a new location, which many people won't know. I think that it was a very good traditional message, and it did have that bit about illness in the middle. And I think that, well, we all feel incredibly sympathetic towards the King and other members of his family who've been ill. They haven't had a good year. We know that. Not their fault. It's all seemed to have come at once. But let's just hope that 2025 will be a more positive one for them and that we'll see them all out and about again. It doesn't quite break a royal tradition having the speech in a different place, because the Queen, Elizabeth II, did occasionally deliver it from different venues. Yeah. Once she was in the Royal Mews, for example, once she was in St. George's Chapel. And I think that, you do always have to slightly change things in order to keep people's interest, in a way, if you like. I mean, if it's just a man sitting at a desk, that becomes rather samey. So I think full marks to him for having chosen this chapel. He likes Byzantine things. He likes that sort of rather exotic architecture. And he fitted very well, I thought, into the venue, if I can put it like that. So I think people will be interested in that. And I think it'll go down as rather a wonderful and rather special message, to be quite honest. Well, he didn't specifically talk about, the actual nature of illness and things like that at all. He talked about, the anxieties and the uncertainties, and I think that covered the point very effectively. I think the main thing, to be quite honest, wasn't it nice to be able to see him there, looking positive, able to deliver his message, because, probably if it had been February or March, that might not have been possible. He's always been incredibly interested in the inner cities and anything that's happened there. That was one of his big missions as Prince of Wales. And so I think that, let's face it, apart from the illnesses of this year, the world has been in turmoil. Britain has had some very unpleasant happenings in it. And I think that, again, without overstressing it, he recognized these things, and he talked about, repairing the damage, moving forward. It was a very positive message and a message of hope. And that is really what the Christmas broadcast is all about. On Christmas Day, people will pause in the middle of their celebrations to watch him. They'll want to get a positive message, and I think they'll come away having had one, didn't you? I think that was the main point. Well, the trip to the South Pacific, of course, was incredibly important because, again, earlier in the year, he wouldn't have been able to do that. And he was able to go to Australia and Samoa. And he is, of course, head of the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth is terribly important. It's a family of nations that comes together voluntarily and has many, many good and positive features, including getting kids together to compete in sport, which means to say that children come from all over the world and they get together. They travel perhaps for the first time, they meet each other. It's a fantastic organization. And I think that, of course, him going to Australia and then on to Samoa for the heads of government Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting was a very significant step in his recovery, actually. Well, I suppose that the difference is that, he's had a difficult year, and he therefore had to recognize that and reflect on it without going into huge detail. He mentioned it, and then he moved on, and I think that was the right way to do it. I think it would have been very strange if he hadn't said anything at all about that. And I'm afraid that's what has to be. I mean, his first broadcast inevitably reflected on him becoming king and the death of the Queen and so forth. And so, it's not always possible to give a fantastically optimistic and exciting message. You have to reflect on the difficult times that has taken place in the course of the year. And as I say, let's just hope that 2025 will be brighter for him, his family, and for everybody else, frankly. Well, I think that given that the world is in such a terrible state of conflict, as he pointed out, as he reminded us, it was very good to start with the gratitude to all those who made what he called the ultimate sacrifice, all those years ago, in order that we could have peace. And of course, we don't have peace now, which is a pity. And his message, I think, was reflecting on, remembering all those who served in the Second World War, and who gave, many of whom, great number of whom gave their lives. And I think it was appropriate that he should start like that. I mean, that's what kings do. They represent the country. They reflect back, and he has a very good, strong sense of history, and he was then able to relate it to some extent to what's going on today. So I think that was very effective.